Hello again, everybody. Next up on our college football tour, Texas. Now, where do we begin with the Longhorns? Because there's a lot going on over on the 40 acres. Coming up, I chat with Cedric Golden of the Austin American-Statesman to get his thoughts on this highly talked about and analyzed team heading into 2022. Look, last year a huge disappointment in the first year under head coach Steve Sarkisian, but it wasn't for a lack of talent per se. It was a lack of finishing and fundamentals. 6 straight losses in the Big 12, a slide which started with that Red River rivalry collapse against Oklahoma. That was really the story of the whole season. The Longhorns having multiple leads throughout, but they just couldn't finish, and they just didn't play well down the stretch. The calls to fire Sarkisian in his first year were loud from some in Austin and in the state, but he's back, and he's confident a second year at the helm will yield better results. A new quarterback could help. One of the best running backs will certainly help. Skill on the outside, but the question marks that offensive line and that defense. Man, whew, that needs to significantly improve because at times it was like other teams were playing against air. Let's look at the schedule. Obviously, the big game everyone is talking about is Week 2. Alabama comes to town. Fun fact, the Tide have only beaten Texas once in their history. Horns have a 7-1-1 mark all time. Their only win against the Longhorns coming in that national title game a few years back. After that, the schedule really works in their favor, though. A rough trip to Stillwater and obviously a date with OU, but they get Baylor at home, Iowa State at home. The only other tricky spot, traveling to Manhattan to face what many think could be a surprise Kansas State team. So, enough of me yammering and talking about this group. Let's hear from the players and head coach Steve Sarkisian as they prepare for their opener against Louisiana Monroe on Saturday.
Obviously a lot of excitement in the air. I felt it today in meetings and at practice. The volume, as I say, kind of gets turned up when the season rolls around, and the intensity gets turned up, and the attention to detail and all those things. And I think in coach speak, you'd like to say every day's the same, but the reality of it is they know it, the players know it, the coaches know it, you can feel it. So good start to the week for us, and it's exciting, man. I say it to you guys all the time, but I love college football. I love everything it represents. For me, it starts in training camp, that we're getting to be back on the grass with the guys. Then school starts, and you start to feel the buzz around campus. And then I'm in my office working at night, and now the band is practicing right here in DKR. Like all those things start, you can kind of smell football. And then obviously it started last weekend, and now we get our opportunity Saturday night in DKR at 7 o'clock.
This has obviously been a dream for me. Growing up, I was a huge Longhorn fan, and I'm just excited to have the opportunity, and just God bless me, and I'm just super humbled and excited. I see myself as like a laid-back kind of person and just kind of roll with the flow, but obviously, being a quarterback, you can't always be like that. And it definitely took some time, just trying to get to know the guys, and it was easy because I came and I had a good friend of mine from Southlake, and Andre Carrick, and having him introduce me to the guys, and kind of grow friendships from him, and obviously as I got to know other people, it kind of just broke out after that, and I feel like I have a bunch of good relationships and a bunch of lifetime long relationships that I'm excited to see how they play out.
We feel tough to me, and again, you never know. Everyone, like the old adage, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, and we'll get punched in the mouth Saturday night, but we feel tough. I feel like we're a hardened group that is going to play a brand of football that I'm accustomed to. And so those things, that evolution of it all, I hate to say it's all because of these new players, because a lot of the guys that are going to be the frontline starters for Saturday played for us a year ago. But I think those guys coming in helped motivate some of those guys to say, I want to keep my job.
Thank you, guys. Now to further break down this team, a guy that has covered the 40 acres for a long time. It's Cedric Golden of the Austin American-Statesman. What he likes, what he doesn't like, what the ceiling is for a team that every year is expected to win. Cedric Golden of the Austin American-Statesman joining me. Cedric, good to see you. Good to talk to you about this Texas football team. Where do we begin? It is an open-ended question with this program all the time. But when I say Texas football in 2022, what's your first thought?
Quarterback. Is Quinn Ewers that guy? Still baffled that he was running fourth string at Ohio State last year. I mean, even for – I know he's supposed to be a high school senior last season, but to run fourth string. That was baffling, and so um, it remains to be seen if Coach Sarkisian made the right call with him over Hudson Card. I think he took upside because Hudson, this is his third year on campus, and had a chance to solidify himself last season and didn't make it out of the second game with his starting position intact. So Quinn Ewers has a big upside, big arm, big confidence, but can he get it done in front of an offensive line that's largely unproven?
When you see both of those guys, and when you've seen both of those guys play, it's always tough to see a guy that has been there for a long time, maybe expecting, I don't know if expecting is the right word, to get maybe the starting job over the new guy on campus. But what have you seen from Quinn out there that leads you to believe that this might be something that works out for them?
Well, he's got arm talent. And in baseball terms, you've heard the term easy power, those power hitters that don't seem to swing very hard and the ball goes a mile. Mark McGuire was one. Albert Pujols, who's still playing. He's
Jordan
got easy.
Alvarez, we have Jordan Alvarez.
Yes, yeah,
Same
yeah.
thing.
You're like, oh, he popped it up and he goes 450 feet. Quinn Ewers has easy arm strength, and it just looks very effortless when he throws it. And when you have that kind of arm talent, now the question is accuracy, because we did see him he misses on the easy stuff, Daniel, the little swing passes, the little 5 yard outs. Sometimes he overcooks those, but the deep ball, man, those are pretty good deep ball. And Texas has some guys that can go get it. That's the thing that kind of stood out for me. They don't let us watch full practices. They let us watch one. They let us watch one
Well,
2 hour practice.
that was nice.
Yeah, well, wasn't that great of them? And the
Yeah,
rest of the time, it was 20 minutes of stretching and drills, and then we got to go. So, if anything, it just allowed us to let our eyeballs tell us what we were seeing in those throwing drills. And he's the more talented of the two arm wise. I think he's the more poised of the two, and I believe that's probably what separated him. Sarkisian said he makes all the throws. Yeah, he makes them all, but can he complete them all? That's the question.
this program, and it's the eternal question, right? I mean, for me, it's always expectation versus reality with the Texas Longhorns. And I know last year it got off to a bad start, well, it got off to a rocky start, then they lost 6 in a row, and then the wheels kind of fell apart. Where is the program with Steve Sarkisian heading into year 2 right now, in your opinion?
Great question. I don't know. I do not know. 5-7, man. Here's the thing, every year, and this is not just under Steve Sarkisian, but under Tom Herman, under Charlie Strong, every year they'd be like, "Oh, this group is the most close knit group I've ever been around. Everybody's so close. There are no egos in the locker room, and blah blah blah." Give me a locker room of 10 jerks, a locker room of 10 jerks. They go 10-2. Over a bunch of nice guys, they go 5-7. Whoever said that a football team has to be the Brady Bunch? So I think that everybody's saying all the right things. Sarkisian's really excited. As a media crew, we really like Steve Sarkisian. He's a cool guy. He's okay. And Charlie Strong was a cool guy. He was okay. But when Charlie got hired, I wrote it in the Statesman. Great guy, but if he doesn't win, he's going to be that great guy who used to coach at Texas. Same thing with Steve. So bringing in Gary Patterson was a really smart move. He knows these Big 12 streets. He knows how to devise defenses that can be effective against Big 12 offenses. He turned TCU into a player in this conference. And so when you bring him in for Pete Kwiatkowski, and Kwiatkowski was at the helm of the number 100th ranked defense in America.
Yeah, we were going to get to that defense. We were going to get to that defense here in a second.
Yes, 425 yards a game. They can get that thing down to 375. They're going to be fine. But 425 a game, man, they were a sieve. So I think GP coming in is going to help in those meeting rooms. I think Sark can use the benefit of his experience, and these seniors, these juniors and seniors have a chance to turn things around. No one likes to go 5-7. No one likes to lose to Kansas. So, um, to answer your question, I took the scenic route, but to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know. We'll know a lot after week 2 when they play Alabama.
I think yes, that's right. And I think for them, for Texas, what I've always seen over the years is that the translation from hype to physicality and that meanness, that attitude that you were talking about, it just, there's something lost in translation with the Longhorns for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years. I don't know if you see it that way, but there's always hype, recruiting class. Yeah, we get all that, but then it doesn't translate to the field, because when they go out there, they get hit in the mouth. It doesn't. What happens? I mean, you got to have a little bit of something when you get hit in the mouth, I think. And at a program like Texas, you need to show that.
Absolutely, and in fairness to Tom Herman, he won here. He didn't win big, and they were physical at times, and then at times they didn't get it done for some reason or another. Um, when they were at their best, they had great guys up front on both sides of the ball, but that goes all the way to Mac Brown, back to Mac Brown, who had great linemen. Justin Blaylock, a decade in the NFL. Corey Redding, a decade in the NFL. Tony Hills, Casey Studdard, Lyle Sinline, Mike Williams. They had so many. Leonard Davis. They had offensive and defensive linemen were dropping out of the trees and going into the NFL draft in the first 2-3 rounds. And now they've only had one guy drafted, one offensive lineman drafted, 2, Sam Cosmi and Tony Hills, only like 2 in the last several years, in like a decade. So it's a physical game. It's a violent game. And if you don't meet that violence, you're not going to win. I remember when I first got on that beat, and then they won the championship in 05. Casey Studdard and Lyle Sinline were the 2 linchpins up front, along with Justin Blaylock. And Sinline was a center, and Studdard was a guard on the left side. And they would point to the hole, to the defensive line. They go, "This is where we're running. We'll meet you in the hole." And they didn't trick them. That's where they would run the ball, meet them in the hole, and Texas guys would win. So they got to find that nastiness. They got to get back to that. You can't manufacture that, Daniel. You either have that or you don't.
And you know what? It seems like they've made a commitment to develop that offensive line in a way. I mean, they have great recruiting class coming in. They're all young, so it may take a bit to get there. But they got some nastiness at running back. They got some, I mean, God bless Bijan Robinson. He is killing it in the NIL game with his mustard and the Lamborghini deals or the Ferrari. I don't even know which one it is, but
it's a Lambo.
It's a Lambo. Okay. So whatever it is, both of those brands. So they've got some nastiness at running back at the skill position, Xavier Worthy. They just have to get physical. And that goes for both sides of the ball. I do want to ask you about the defense, though. And I did read a quote from one of the guys. His name slips my mind, but there's been a lot of schematic changes on that side of the ball. I'm not trying to, pass the buck, and they still got to play hard and all that, but do you think that kind of plays? And we have so much change on the defensive side of the ball, especially over the last couple of years with these guys, that has to affect things,
Mm-hmm. They had to do something. I mean, it's not working. You have to change. Yeah. Bringing Gary Patterson in was the biggest change. They have some talent over there, but I got to tell you, those guys up front, Keandre Colburn, Chivondre Sweat, Moro Ojimo, are those the interior, the defensive linemen are the oldest, most experienced crew on the roster. They have to play up to that experience level. Alfred Collins, they have to play up to that experience level. They have underachieved as a group for the last 3 seasons. We've been waiting for them to break out. They have talent. We talked to Keandre Colburn, who we call Snacks. That's what everyone calls him, Snacks, for good reason. He likes snacks. He's 335. He likes snacks. We talked to him, and he says, I know that I keep saying this year is going to be our best year. He goes, this is it for us. I'm a senior. Moro's a senior. It's now or never. And when you give up the chunk plays they gave up on the back end, it's not all attributed to the corners and the safeties. Those big dudes aren't getting a push up front. They've got to be more disruptive. They've got to crash the party in that offensive backfield. And the old guys always say you got to speed up that clock in the quarterback's head. Let him know, oh man, Rome is about to burn. And so quarterbacks were way too comfortable last season back there, able to pick them apart. You can't ask a cornerback to hold a guy down for 5 or 6 seconds. If you can give 3 good seconds of coverage, that should be enough time for the defensive line to impact the pass rush. And so it's up to the big guys up front. They haven't had an edge rusher in a good long while. Pete Kwiatkowski was asked a couple of weeks by our Brian Davis, my colleague, what about the pass rush? And he looked back and he goes, what pass rush? What pass rush? He meant it. He meant it. Yeah. And so when your best guy has like 3 sacks, it's not going to cut it.
No. Okay. So I guess finally to wrap up their schedule, you mentioned the Alabama game, second week of the season. Look, that's the ultimate litmus test, right? If where you want to be, you're going to end up in the SEC. They're not Alabama right now. Like, I'm just going to be that right now, just be frank. But if they can go out there and compete, show a little something, then maybe that's a good stepping stone and a building block. And obviously Oklahoma, their big thing this year, I read with Steve Sarkisian, is finish. They didn't finish any games last year. They lost leads second half all the time. So what is the ceiling for this team? I know you said I don't know for the program where they are, but for this particular group, talent-wise, what they have, they've lost some guys to injury, which is unfortunate during camp. But ceiling-wise, where is this team in 2022?
Yeah, you mentioned that losing Junior Angelau and Isaiah Nair, huge losses. The ceiling, I think, is like 9 wins. They can win 9 games, man. The Sark could run for mayor if they win 9 games. I have them at 8-4. I think the question marks at quarterback, the lack of a pass rush, and losing their other vertical threat in Isaiah Nair was huge. And the offensive line. You've got a freshman, Kelvin Banks, who's probably going to start at left tackle. He's a freshman. He's a grown man. I mean, 6'6", 320 pounds. Looks like the side of a barn. He is ripped, but he's a freshman. You have Cam Williams, freshman, going to play. They have to play these youngsters. So that's going to be some growing pains, particularly in week 2. The question is, can they come out of that Alabama game healthy? I mean, they can be battered and bruised, but they can't be broken coming out of that game. The goal should be to go 2-1 in non-conference. They're going to beat ULM like they stole something. UTSA after Alabama, who knows? UTSA is no joke. 12-2 last season. At Oklahoma State, never easy. Texas Tech thinks they can make some noise this year. They got to go to Tech, and they play both Kansas schools on the road. K-State is a dark horse to win the Big 12 this year. And, of course, you get Baylor at home. You get OU on the road, West Virginia at home. So I like where it's going, but there are question marks. People are saying they're going to go 11-1. The idiot who voted them number 1 in the media poll, stupid. I think Nick Saban voted him number 1 in the coaches poll. We'll never be able to prove that. But I think 8 wins is a good 3-win improvement for Sark. And if they win 9, maybe they're off and running with Arch Manning coming in next season.
Good thing is that I don't know if Oklahoma is going to be the dominant team anymore. So the Big 12 could be a little wide open here this year, which makes for a lot of fun competition. Which makes it for an interesting season. But I go back to it. Expectation.
Yes, sir.
Reality. And I think that's where the Longhorns are. Cedric, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. And maybe I'll see you in Austin this season.
Man, let me know. We'll go get a plate of KHOU. There's food. There's food here.
There's plenty to go get. I appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Okay, brother.
Thank you, Cedric. What I like about him is he's realistic. Great catching up with him. You can catch his work in the Austin American-Statesman. So what will the Longhorns have to offer? That's the big question. Well, we should at least know what this team and coaching staff are made of after week 2. Look, they don't have to beat Alabama, but a good showing there could propel them in a relatively wide open Big 12.